The arrival of the forest was quiet, but it did not feel peaceful. Evan stepped out of his ship and looked around. The sky above was black, filled with strange glowing clouds. The ground under his boots was soft, covered with blue moss that gave off a faint light. He could hear nothing except his own breathing and the hum of his small landing craft behind him. He held his rifle close and took a few steps forward. This was not his first mission on an alien planet, but something about this place made him uneasy. The trees were tall and twisted, their branches sharp like claws. Between them, dark shapes moved now and then, but whenever he looked directly, they were gone. His communicator beeped in his ear. "Evan," said the commander's voice, cold and sharp. "Report. Do you see her?" Evan pressed the button. On his collar. "Not yet. Beginning search now." "Good. Remember the orders. Do not talk to her. Do not believe her lies. Bring her in, alive." The voice cut off. Evan sighed and kept walking. They had told him very little about her. Only that she was dangerous. Only that she must not escape. They said she was a thief, a spy, maybe even a killer. But when he asked what exactly she had done, no one gave him an answer. He moved deeper into the forest. The light from the sky became dimmer. He switched on his helmet lamp and followed a narrow path through the moss dots. Suddenly, he stopped. There was a sound, very soft, but it was there. A sound like crying. Doc Evan turned his head. The sound came from the left, behind a thick wall of vines. He pushed the vines aside carefully and stepped through. On the other side was a small clearing. The ground here was bare, the moss burned away, as if there had been a fire. And there, near a fallen tree, he saw her, the alien girl. She sat with her back against the tree, knees pulled up to her chest. Her skin was pale, almost glowing faintly in the dark. Her long hair fell over her face, but even through the strands he could see her eyes, large and bright, shimmering like gold. She saw him. She froze. For a moment, neither of them moved. Evan raised his rifle slightly, but not all the way. Then she spoke. Her voice was soft but clear. Don't let them take me. Please." Evan blinked. He was not expecting her to speak first, and he was not expecting her to sound so human. "Stay where you are," he said. His voice was steady, but inside he felt a strange pull, like the words she said had planted a question in his mind. She slowly stood up, but kept her hands visible, showing she was not holding anything. "You don't understand," she said. Her golden eyes locked onto his. "If you take me back, they'll hurt me. They'll hurt everyone." Evan shook his head slightly. "You're dangerous. They told me. I have my orders." Her lips trembled. "And do you believe them?" That question hung in the air. Evan didn't answer. The communicator beeped in his ear again. "Evan? Status? Have you found her?" He pressed the button, but hesitated before replying. His eyes stayed on hers. "Negative," he said at last, still searching. A long silence from the other side. Then the commander's voice came back. "Move. Quickly. We don't have all night. And don't talk to her. She is not what she looks like." The line went dead again. Evan lowered his hand from the communicator, but kept his eyes on the girl. She took a small step closer. "Why do you think? They send you alone?" She whispered. "Why do you think they never tell you the truth?" Evan gripped his rifle tighter. He wanted to say something, to tell her to stop talking, but no words came out. She lifted one of her sleeves, and even in the dim light, he could see dark scars running along her arm. "Do you think I did this to myself?" she said. Her voice cracked now, and for the first time Evan noticed the tears on her cheeks. He looked away. He wasn't supposed to feel sorry for her. He wasn't supposed to feel anything. but something about her voice, about the way she looked at him, made it hard to breathe. Suddenly, a loud crack came from the trees behind him. He swung around and aimed his rifle, but saw nothing. When he turned back to her, she was closer now. Too close. You have to choose, she whispered. Right now, them or me. The communicator crackled in his ear again. Louder this. Time. Evan, report. Do you have eyes on the target? Evan's hand hovered over the button, but didn't press it. The girl's eyes glowed brighter now, and she whispered again, barely louder than the wind. Please, don't let them take me. Evan stood there, heart pounding in his chest, torn between the voice in his ear and the voice in front of him, Dot, and for the first time, he wondered if his mission was not to save humanity, but to save her. The choice Evan did not move for a long time. The forest was still around him. The girl's golden eyes glowed softly in the dark, watching him, waiting for his answer. His finger rested on the button of his communicator, but he couldn't press it. He felt like two forces were pulling him in opposite directions, the voice of his commander in his ear, and the quiet plea of the alien girl standing in front of him. Finally, he spoke. His voice was low. Why should I trust you? She tilted her head slightly, her glowing hair falling over her shoulder. Her lips curved into the faintest, saddest smile. You already know the answer, she said. Evan shook his head and raised his rifle again, just to feel like he still had control. I don't know anything, he said. All I know is you're dangerous. Everyone says so. Her smile faded. Then why are your hands shaking? She whispered. Evan froze. He looked down. She was right. His hands were trembling. He quickly tightened his grip on the rifle. That doesn't mean anything, he said. But his voice was weaker now. The girl stepped closer. If you take me back, she said, her voice calm now, steady, you will not see me again. Not like this. They will lock me in a glass cage. They will cut me open, piece by piece. They will call it science. Evan's stomach turned. He hated the picture her words painted in his mind. But he forced himself to speak. You killed people, he said. She raised her arms and showed him the scars again. They killed my family, she answered simply. For a long moment, there was only silence between them. Then the communicator buzzed. Again, sharp, angry this time. Evan, do you hear me? Where are you? We're detecting movement on your tracker. Have you located the target? Answer now. Evan flinched at the sound. He pressed the button. Not yet, he lied. His throat was dry, still searching. Move faster, the commander snapped. And remember, do not speak to her. She is not what she seems. Evan let go of the button and lowered his hand. The girl watched him quietly. Then she said something that sent a chill down his spine. They told you not to speak to me, she murmured, because they are afraid you'll listen. Evan stared at her. He didn't know what to say. She turned her back and started walking slowly, deeper into the forest. After a few steps, she looked over her shoulder. Come, she said. If you want the truth, follow me. Evan hesitated. Only a moment before his feet moved on their own. The forest grew darker as they went deeper. Strange plants glowed faintly around them, lighting the path in ghostly colors, blue, green, and violet. Every now and then, Evan thought he saw shadows moving in the corners of his vision. What's down here? He asked. The place they don't want you to see, she replied. Her voice was soft, but there was something strong behind it. They came to a narrow crack between two giant rocks. The girl slipped through easily, and Evan followed, squeezing himself sideways. On the other side was a hidden valley. It took Evan's breath away. The valley was full of strange creatures. There, bodies shimmering like glass, their eyes glowing faintly in the dark. They didn't look like anything he had seen before. Tall, graceful beings with long limbs and soft, flowing movements. When the girl stepped into the valley, the creatures all stopped and turned toward her. Then, one by one, they lowered their heads in what looked like respect. Evan stood frozen, staring. "They know me," she said, her golden eyes reflecting the soft lights of the valley. "They remember what we lost." Evan swallowed. "What are you?" he asked quietly. She turned to face him fully. "I am the last of them," she said. "The last free one. The others? They are already gone. Because of your people." Evan shook his head. "That's not what I was told," he said. "I know," she replied. She walked up to him and looked directly into his eyes. "You think you're here to protect your people from me," she said. "But the truth is, I am here to protect mine from you." Her words hit him harder than he expected. Before he could respond, a sharp noise broke through the air, the sound of a drone flying above. Both of them looked up. A human surveillance drone hovered above the valley, its camera locking on them. "They found us," the girl said softly. Evan raised his rifle and fired. The drone sparked and fell, crashing into the rocks, but it was too late. The signal was already sent. "They're coming," Evan said. She nodded. "You still have time to choose," she said, her voice steady despite the fear in her golden eyes. "Choose what?" he demanded. "To be a soldier," she said, "or to be a man." The ground began to shake faintly under their feet. In the distance, they could hear the engines of dropships approaching. The girl stepped closer and put a hand on his chest. "If you take me back," she whispered, "everything you've seen here will die, including me." Evan looked at her, then back at the sky where the dropships grew louder. In his ear, the communicator crackled again. "Evan, report immediately. Do you have the target?" "Over." He stared at the girl, his rifle heavy in his hands. In that moment, he realized this was no longer just a mission. It was a choice. The escape. The sky above the valley roared as the first dropship appeared. Evan's heart pounded as the engine's noise shook the ground. Dust rose from the trees as more ships arrived, their lights cutting through the darkness. Soldiers in heavy armor began to drop down on long black ropes. The alien girl stood still beside him, her golden eyes calm, even as the enemy surrounded them. "You have to choose now," she said softly. Evan gripped his rifle tighter. The communicator in his ear barked to life again, louder than before. "Evan, do not engage the target. Do not let her run. We have you on visual. Stand down." He tore the communicator from his ear and threw it into the moss. The girl looked at him. There was no smile on her face this time, only a quiet understanding. "Good," she whispered. The first soldiers landed at the edge of the valley. Evan raised his rifle and fired, not at the girl, but at them. One soldier dropped, sparks flying from his armor. "Run," Evan said to her, but she didn't move. "They will follow," she replied. "Then I'll stop them," he said. Girl finally nodded, then turned and darted toward the far side of the valley. Evan followed close behind, firing at the soldiers to slow them down. Blinding lights from the dropships swept across the valley as more soldiers stormed in. "Don't let her escape," someone shouted. Bullets tore through the air. Evan ducked behind a rock and fired back, covering the girl as she slipped into a narrow opening between two cliffs. "Through here," she called. Evan ran after her, bullets sparking off the rocks around him. The opening led to a steep tunnel that sloped down into darkness. The walls glowed faintly, covered with strange alien symbols. Evan skidded to a stop at the bottom of the slope, his breath coming hard. The girl was already waiting for him, her hair glowing faintly in the dark. "This way," she said. She touched the wall, and it shifted open like a door. Beyond was another tunnel, Even deeper and stranger. Evan followed without thinking. Behind them, the sound of boots and shouting grew fainter, but it was still there. The tunnel was tight and winding, lit by glowing veins in the walls. Strange. Whispers filled the air, like 100 voices speaking softly at once. Evan glanced around uneasily. "What is this place?" he asked. "The old paths," she replied. "They built these tunnels long before your kind came here. Before they fell." "Who are they?" he asked. "My people," she said simply. As they moved, Evan noticed the walls change. Carvings appeared, tall figures with glowing eyes, standing over humans. The carvings showed battles, fire, and then cages. Humans were everywhere in the pictures, carrying weapons, breaking things. Evan stopped to look closer. In one carving, a figure that looked like the girl stood alone in a glowing circle, surrounded by humans. The humans held knives and tools. "Swallowed hard. They knew you were coming," she said from behind him. Evan turned to her. "Why didn't they fight back?" he asked. "They tried," she said, her voice hollow. "But your kind is very good at taking what is not yours." The whispers around them grew louder now. Evan shook his head. "Not me," he said quietly. She tilted her head, golden eyes locking. "On him." "Then prove it," she said. Before he could answer, the tunnel shook violently. Dust rained down. "They're here," she said. From behind came the faint sound of metal boots on stone. The soldiers had found the opening. "Go," she said, pulling him forward. They ran deeper, the tunnel twisting and turning. Suddenly, the path opened into a massive underground chamber. Evan stopped in awe. It was like nothing he had ever seen. A huge cavern with walls that shimmered like glass. In the center stood a strange machine, tall and alive with light. It pulsed slowly, like a beating heart. The girl walked to the machine and placed her hands on it. Lines of light shot out from her fingertips and ran through the machine, lighting the whole chamber in gold. What is this?" Evan asked. "The heart of my world," she said softly. "The last thing they could not destroy." Behind them, voices echoed in the tunnel. Closer now. The girl's eyes glowed brighter as she turned to Evan. "I can hide us," she said, "but it will cost me." Evan stepped toward her. "No," he said. "We'll fight. Together." Her gaze softened, and for a moment her lips curved into the faintest smile. "Then you really are different," she said. The soldiers' shouts were clear now. Evan could see their shadows on the tunnel wall. He raised his rifle and stepped in front of the girl. "You stay with your machine," he said. "I'll hold them here." The first soldier entered the chamber, and Evan fired. The cavern lit up with the flash of gunfire and the strange golden glow from the machine. More soldiers poured in. Evan fought hard, using the rocks as cover, but they kept coming. One soldier charged at the girl, but before Evan could stop him, the machine flared with light, and a wave of energy threw the soldier back like a rag doll. The girl sank to her knees, her hands still on the machine. "I can't hold it much longer," she whispered. Evan fired at another soldier, then looked back at her. "Then we need to move," he said. She nodded weakly. "This way," she said, and the machine opened another path. A door in the rock. Evan grabbed her arm and helped her up. Together, they slipped through the door just as the chamber shook with another explosion. Behind them, the soldiers shouted, but the door closed, sealing them inside the dark. Evan turned his light on and looked at her. Her skin was pale, and her breathing was heavy. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded faintly. "We bought some time," she said, "but they'll keep coming," Evan said grimly. She met his eyes, her own golden and fierce. "Yes," she said, "but now you're with me." And in the silence of the tunnels, Evan realized that running with her was no longer just about protecting her Dot. It was about protecting everything she stood for and proving to himself that he was more than just a soldier. Asterisk, the secret the tunnel ahead was silent, but Evan felt like it was watching him. He held his rifle close, the faint light from his helmet cutting through the darkness. The alien girl walked ahead of him now, her golden hair glowing faintly, her step sure even though her breathing was still heavy from the escape. For the first time since landing on this planet, Evan felt completely cut off, not just from his squad, but from everything he thought he knew. Behind them, the sound of soldiers faded into the distance. The thick stone doors of the cavern had sealed shut, cutting them off from the humans. But Evan could not shake the feeling that something much larger than soldiers was waiting for them down here. He caught up to the girl. "You're hurt," he said quietly. "I'm fine," she whispered without looking at him. Her tone was distant, but not cold. It was as if her mind was somewhere else, somewhere deeper in these tunnels. The walls around them began to change as they moved forward. The smooth stone became etched with strange markings, carved deep and glowing softly as if alive. Evan slowed and ran his fingers across one. The surface was warm. "What are these?" he asked Dot. She finally stopped and turned to face him. "They're not just walls," she said. "They are memories?" "Memories?" he repeated. "Yes," she replied. "My people don't write books. We carve our history into the stone. Every mark here tells a story." Evan looked closer. The carving stretched as far as his light could reach. There were pictures of tall, elegant beings, her people standing in golden cities under bright skies. Humans arrived in metal ships, shaking hands at first, and pulling out weapons. The next section showed battles, blood, and fire raining from the sky. The final part was the hardest to look at. Her people locked in cages, their glowing eyes dimmed, their bodies lying in piles. Evan's stomach turned. "They didn't tell us this," he muttered. "They never do," she said softly. He kept walking, eyes on the carvings, trying to understand. "So you were one of the last?" he asked. "I am the last free one," she said. "They think of me as a prize, something to study, something to break." Her words hung in the air like a knife. Evan clenched his jaw. "That's not why I came here," he said firmly. She gave him a faint, tired smile. "I know," she said. "That's why you're still here." The tunnel opened into a larger chamber now, a round room lit entirely by the walls themselves, which glowed like gold. At the center stood a tall pedestal with a crystal hovering above it, spinning slowly. The girl walked to the pedestal and placed her hand on it. The walls around them came alive. Suddenly, images appeared in the air, not just carvings, but moving memories. Evan stared in shock as golden light painted the room. He saw her, as a child, running through a bright city full of laughter. He saw soldiers landing in ships, rounding up her family, her friends, taking them away. He saw her alone in a cold glass cage, wires attached to her skin, her eyes dim. And then he saw something else. He saw her standing in the heart of the planet, her hands pressed to a machine that pulsed with blinding light. He saw humans falling back, terrified. "You fought back," Evan whispered. She nodded slowly. "I gave them a warning," she said. "And they called it war." Evan swallowed hard. "This machine," he said, pointing at the crystal. "What is it?" Her eyes met his. "This is our heart," she said. "It is the only thing that can wake the planet. If it dies, everything dies with it." Evan took a step closer. "Wake the planet? What does that mean?" he asked. She looked at him with something like sadness in her eyes. "It means there is more here than you can see, more than your people can control. This world is alive, Evan, and it remembers." Suddenly, The glowing walls flickered. A loud hum filled the room. The girl's eyes widened. "They're trying to break through the seal," she said urgently. Evan turned toward the tunnel they had come from. He could hear faint banging and the whine of human tools cutting into stone. "They're coming," he said. "They're faster than I thought," she replied. The crystal above the pedestal began to crack. A faint scream, or maybe just the wind, echoed through the chamber. M raised his rifle. "What happens if they reach us here?" he asked. Her hands trembled as she held the crystal, trying to steady it. "They'll destroy the heart," she said, "and the planet will fall silent forever." Evan gritted his teeth. "Then we can't let that happen," he said. She looked at him, really looked at him, and for the first time her golden eyes seemed to shine with hope. "You really don't understand what you're standing against," she whispered. "I don't need to," he said, stepping closer to her. "I just know what's right." She stared at him for a moment longer. Then she nodded. "Then we wake it," she said. Before Evan could ask what that meant, she slammed her hands on the crystal. The entire chamber exploded in light. The carvings on the walls lit up so bright he had to shield his eyes. The ground shook. Something deep below them roared, something ancient and alive. The sound of soldiers at the tunnel stopped suddenly, replaced by silence. Then screams. Evan lowered his arm and stared in awe. The room was glowing brighter now, and the girl stood at the center, her feet barely touching the ground, her hair floating around her like fire. Her voice came out, not just from her mouth, but from the walls, the floor, the air itself. "Awaken." The chamber shook harder, and cracks raced through the ceiling. Golden light poured from every surface. Evan backed away, his heart pounding, as the walls around him seemed to breathe. The girl turned to him, her face calm but powerful now. "They can't stop it anymore," she said. From the tunnel came one last, desperate shout. "Evan, stand down. You don't know what you're doing." He ignored it. Instead, he stepped closer to her and said quietly, "Tell me what to do next." Her golden eyes met his, fierce and full of something ancient. "Now," she said, her voice echoing everywhere, "you help me finish what they started." And with that, the ground beneath them split open, revealing a staircase of light that led even deeper into the heart of the planet. Without hesitation, Evan followed her down into the unknown. The betrayal. Evan followed the alien girl down the staircase of light, his boots echoing softly with each step. The air grew warmer as they descended. The walls on either side shimmered like glass, alive with moving golden patterns that Evan didn't understand, shapes that felt almost alive, like eyes watching him from all directions. He glanced at the girl. Her feet didn't even touch the steps anymore. She moved gracefully, the light wrapping around her like a second skin. "You said," Evan began, his voice low, "we're going to finish what they started. What does that mean?" The girl didn't look back. "It means," she replied softly, "I am going to wake the heart of the planet, and you are going to decide who lives when it wakes." Evan frowned, uneasy at her words. "Who lives?" He repeated, "What does that mean?" "You're not going to." Her golden eyes flickered briefly as she glanced over her shoulder at him. "You'll see," she said. The staircase finally opened into another vast chamber, larger than any Evan had seen yet. The ceiling was so high it disappeared into blackness. At the center of the floor was a massive circular platform, covered in glowing veins of gold. The heart of the planet. It pulsed slowly, like a living thing, and every pulse made the air thrum in Evan's chest. The girl walked to the center of the platform and placed her hands against the golden surface. At once, the walls came alive. Images appeared all around them, but these weren't memories of the past. They were visions of now. Evan watched as he saw his own people above ground. Dozens of soldiers marching through the valley. Huge machines digging into the soil. Dropships blotting out the sky. He saw his commander barking orders. If you see her, kill her if you must. Destroy the heart if you must. No one leaves this place until it's over. Evan clenched his fists. They're coming, he muttered. The girl nodded, her golden hair floating around her as the platform lit brighter under her touch. They think destroying me will save them, she said. Evan stepped closer. Then let me help you stop them, he said. But the girl's expression hardened now, and her eyes became sharp. That's the problem. Evan, she said, her voice low and strange. You don't even know what you're asking for. Evan froze. What do you mean? He asked carefully. The golden light around the chamber flickered and dimmed slightly, as if it too was holding its breath. The girl stood straighter, her voice echoing softly around them. Your people invaded my world, killed my family, destroyed my cities, caged me like an animal. And now, she said, turning to face him fully, you want me to save them? Evan swallowed hard. I don't care what they did to you, he said firmly. I'm not them. I'm here with you now. Doesn't that mean anything? Her golden eyes studied him for a long, quiet moment. Finally, she spoke. That's what you think, she whispered. Before Evan could react, the platform beneath his feet shifted. Sharp tendrils of golden light shot up and wrapped around his legs and arms, pinning him in place. What the? Evan struggled, but the more he fought, the tighter the tendrils held him. The girl stood over him now, her gaze cold and unflinching. I hoped, she said softly, that you'd be different. But you still think you're here to save someone. You don't understand, Evan. I don't need saving. Evan gritted his teeth. Then why bring me here? He demanded. Her golden eyes glimmered sadly. To show you the truth, she said. She gestured at the walls, and the images changed again. But this time, they showed him. Evan. He watched himself on the battlefield years ago, gunning down fleeing creatures. He saw himself hauling prisoners into cages. He saw himself standing by silently as commanders ordered destruction after destruction. Evan shook his head violently. No, he muttered. That wasn't me. I was following orders. The girl's expression softened, but her voice was still heavy with disappointment. Everyone follows orders, she said. That's the problem. Evan stopped struggling. He looked up at her, breathing hard. So, what now? He asked quietly. She crouched in front of him, her glowing fingers brushing his cheek. She whispered, You make your final choice. Suddenly, the walls behind her split open, and the chamber flooded with light and noise. Human soldiers poured into the room, led by his commander. The commander's voice boomed through the chamber. Evan, step away from her. This is your last chance. Evan's head snapped toward the sound. The girl didn't even turn. They'll kill you, she murmured. Evan stared at the soldiers, then at her. Let me go, he said. Her golden eyes narrowed slightly. Why? She asked softly. Because I need to finish this my way, he replied. For a moment, the tendrils hesitated, then loosened and vanished. Evan stood slowly, rubbing his wrists. He walked toward the soldiers, rifle in hand. The commander smirked. When he saw him, That's it, son, the commander barked. You did good. Step aside now. Let us deal with her. Evan stopped in the middle of the chamber, between the soldiers and the girl, and he raised his rifle, not at the girl, at his commander. The commander froze, disbelief flashing in his eyes. Evan, he said carefully, think about what you're doing. I already have, Evan said, his voice steady. Behind him. The girl stood silent, watching him. You betrayed your own kind, the commander growled. Evan shook his head slowly. No, he said. You betrayed everything we're supposed to stand for." And then, without another word, he pulled the trigger. The shot echoed like thunder in the chamber. The commander fell to the ground, silent. For a long moment, no one moved, and Evan turned. Back to the girl. Her golden eyes watched him carefully. "Now what?" he asked quietly. She tilted her head, a faint, approving smile on her lips. "Now," she said, her voice soft but full of power, "you stand with me." And as the soldiers behind him lowered their weapons, unsure, afraid, the golden light around the chamber began to rise, swallowing them all in a blinding glow. Evan felt the ground tremble beneath his feet and knew there was no turning back. The fight back the golden light swallowed the chamber whole. Evan raised his arm to shield his eyes as the air roared around him, hot and alive. The ground cracked beneath his boots. The walls glowed so bright he could no longer see the soldiers. Behind him, only shadows swallowed by the light. And then everything stopped. Silence. When Evan opened his eyes, the soldiers were gone. Or rather, they stood frozen, their weapons raised, their bodies stiff but unmoving, as though time itself had stopped around them. Only Evan and the alien girl still moved. Her golden eyes shimmered like molten metal as she floated above the platform now, the light from the heart of the planet streaming into her hands. "They can't move," Evan whispered, glancing around in shock. "They can't," she answered softly, though her voice now came from everywhere, the walls, the air, even inside his mind. Evan tightened his grip on his rifle, though it felt useless now. "What did you do to them?" he asked. "I gave them a choice," she said, "like I gave you." He looked back at the soldiers. Their faces were full of fear, but their eyes glowed faintly gold. "They're afraid of you," Evan muttered. "They should be," she replied. She drifted back down to the platform and looked at him. "But you," she said softly, "you still have a chance to fight for something better." Evan stared at her, torn between awe and fear. "What do you want me to do?" he asked. Her lips curved into the faintest smile. "Stand with me," she said. "Not just against them, but against everything they've built." Evan glanced at the frozen soldiers again. "They won't stop," he said. "Even if we stop these men, more will come. More ships. More guns." She nodded slowly. "That's why," she said, her golden eyes flashing bright, "we stop them all." Before Evan could ask what she meant, the walls around them shook violently. A low rumble rose from the depths of the chamber, not the sound of machines, but something deeper, older. Evan felt it in his chest, his bones, his teeth. "What is that?" he shouted over the noise. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she walked to the center of the platform and pressed her hands to it. The ground split open, revealing a spiral staircase of light leading even further down. She looked back at him, her expression suddenly sharp and full of fire. "That," she said, "is the heart waking up?" The chamber above them cracked as dust and stones fell from the ceiling. The frozen soldiers began to shiver now, their bodies fighting against her power. "They're breaking free," Evan said urgently. She nodded. "Then we must finish this." "Before they do," she said. Without waiting for his answer, she descended into the light. Evan took a deep breath, then followed her. The staircase spiraled into a massive cavern, larger than anything they had seen, yet at the center of the cavern was something Evan could barely understand. It looked alive, a colossal structure made of glowing veins, pulsing, like a living heart, but it was also mechanical, full of moving parts and impossible shapes. It rose out of a deep chasm, and above it swirled golden storms that lit the cavern like day. Evan stopped at the edge of the platform, staring in awe. "This is," he whispered. "The true heart of my world," she said. She walked toward it, her steps light. As though she was part of the place already. Evan stepped after her. "What happens if you wake it?" he asked. She looked over her shoulder at him, her golden hair floating in the electric air. "It fights back," she said simply. He hesitated. "Against what?" "Against everything," she replied. Above them, the sound of soldiers' boots echoed again, faint but growing louder. "They're coming," Evan said. "They can't stop it now," she murmured. She raised her arms and the heart began to glow brighter. The ground beneath Evan cracked and rumbled high above them. The chamber ceiling split open completely, and a human dropship descended. Its cannons pointed straight at them. The commander's voice rang out over loudspeakers. "Evan! Step away from her, now!" Evan tightened his grip on his rifle, but didn't move. The girl's eyes met his, full of quiet fury and determination. "You don't have to fight them," she said. "Yes," Evan said, lowering his rifle slightly. "I do." Without another word, she placed her hands on the heart. It exploded with golden light. Soldiers above screamed as the dropship's engine sputtered and failed, sending it crashing to the ground. The walls of the cavern lit with thousands of moving patterns, like veins of fire. Evan raised his rifle and ran to the edge of the platform, firing at the soldiers still descending. Bullets whizzed past him, but the girl stood completely still at the center, her power rippling outward in waves, knocking soldiers to the ground one by one. "You're killing them," Evan shouted over the roar. "I warned them," she said. Evan paused, then raised his rifle again, this time shooting at the dropship still trying to rise. The chamber shook again, and giant cracks split open in the floor. Something began. Rising from the chasm, a massive creature of light and stone, its eyes burning gold. Evan froze, staring up at it. "What the hell is that?" he muttered. "The Heart's Guardian," she said calmly. The creature roared, sending a blast of wind that knocked soldiers off their feet. Above them, more dropships tried to flee, but golden tendrils shot out from the walls, wrapping around the ships and pulling them down. Evan ducked as debris rained down. He turned to her. "You're going to destroy everything," he shouted. She looked at him, her golden eyes blazing. "I'm going to set it free," she corrected. Guardian stepped forward, shaking the entire cavern. The remaining soldiers dropped their weapons and fled toward the tunnels. Evan looked at her again, and finally lowered his rifle. "What do you want me to do?" he asked quietly. Her expression softened. "Fight with me," she said simply. Evan took a deep breath, then nodded. "Then tell me where to shoot," he said. Her lips curved into the faintest smile. "At them," she whispered. The Guardian roared again, and Evan raised his rifle as the last wave of soldiers charged. He fired, but this time it wasn't just for her. It was for the planet. For himself, for everything. And as the cavern erupted in fire and light, Evan knew that no matter what happened next, he had already chosen his side. The resolution the cavern shook like it was alive. Above, the golden storms raged, tearing through the ceiling. Below, the Guardian roared, its massive form of light and stone crushing everything in its path. Soldiers screamed and scattered, their rifles clattering uselessly to the ground. And in the center of it all stood Evan, his rifle raised, his eyes fixed on the alien girl. She floated just above the glowing platform now, her arms outstretched, her golden hair whipping wildly around her face. The veins of light from the heart wrapped around her like chains and wings at the same time. But she was trembling. Evan saw it now. Her strength was failing. He ran to her, ducking falling debris and the furious winds whipping through the cavern. "You can't keep this up forever," he shouted over the roar. Her golden eyes flicked down at him, sharp but full of pain. "I don't have to," she replied. "I only have to hold them long enough to wake it fully." Evan shook his head, gripping his rifle tight. "You'll burn." yourself alive. Her faint smile didn't reach her eyes. Maybe that's the only way, she whispered. Before Evan could answer, another dropship crashed into the cavern wall with a deafening boom. The ground split beneath them, and Evan barely managed to catch himself before falling into the dark chasm below. The Guardian roared again, its massive arms sweeping through a line of soldiers, sending them flying like dust. The last squad of humans had dropped to their knees now, shouting into their radios, begging for someone to extract them. No one came. Evan forced himself to his feet, heart pounding, and climbed back onto the platform where the girl stood. "You said this planet remembers," he said, his voice rough. "It does," she murmured, eyes closed now as she fought to control the heart's power. "And you said it listens," he pressed. "It does," she repeated, her voice weaker. "Then make it listen to me too," Evan demanded, her eyes opened slowly, confused. "What?" She breathed. He stepped closer, lowering his rifle at last, and reached out toward her. "You don't have to carry this alone," he said. The platform shook violently, throwing him to his knees. But still he reached forward, his hand closing. Over hers. At first, she flinched, golden light sparking wildly between their skin. But then, something changed. The chains of light that held her began to flow around him too, wrapping his arms, his chest. For the first time, the platform pulsed in two colors, gold and white. Her eyes widened. "You," she whispered. "You're inside the heart now." "I told you," Evan said, gritting his teeth against the pain. "I'm with you. All the way." The heart throbbed, and the cavern roared louder than ever. Above them, the storm stilled for a single moment, as if the planet itself was watching. And then the Guardian stopped moving. It turned its massive head toward them, its golden eyes narrowing, then bowed low. The light in the cavern changed, softer now, warmer. The soldiers, those who hadn't fled, collapsed to their knees, their weapons forgotten. Evan felt something inside himself shift, like a door opening. Suddenly, he understood. He saw the memories of the planet. He saw her people, their lives, their grief, their love for this world. And he saw his own kind, tearing it apart piece by piece. Evan staggered under the weight of it all, but the girl held him steady. "Now you see," she whispered. He nodded, his throat tight. "Yes," he said hoarsely. "I see." The light from the heart rose higher, filling the cavern completely. And then it spoke, not in words, but in feeling. A deep, powerful presence that flooded through Evan and the girl both. It asked one question. "Who shall inherit this world?" Evan looked at her, and she looked back. She gave him a faint nod. Evan turned his eyes upward, to the frozen soldiers, to the broken machines, to the cracks in the earth. And he spoke. "They don't deserve it," he said quietly. "But neither do I give it back to those who still love it." For a long moment, there was silence. Then the heart pulsed one final time. The soldiers above vanished, simply gone, their armor clattering to the ground. The broken machines melted into the earth. The storms cleared, and the golden light faded, leaving only quiet. Evan fell to his knees, gasping for air. The girl crouched beside him, her eyes no longer glowing but soft and tired. "You chose well," she murmured. He met her gaze, breathing hard. "Did we win?" he asked. She tilted her head, her golden hair falling around her face. "We survived," she said simply. "That is enough." Evan let out a shaky laugh. "Not much of a victory speech," he muttered. She smiled faintly. "There's no speech," she said. "Only a beginning." The Guardian moved closer, lowering its massive hand to the platform. She stood, then looked down at Evan and extended her hand. "Come," she said softly. Evan stared at her hand for a moment, then took it. The guardian lifted them both, carrying them toward the light at the top of the cavern. As they rose, Evan glanced back one last time, at the heart, at the empty chamber, at the place where everything had changed, and for the first time in his life, he felt no fear, only peace, above. Then the sky opened, not black anymore, but brilliant in gold, alive with light. The girl turned to him, her golden eyes shining once more. "You saved more than me," she whispered. Evan looked at her. "You saved me too," he replied. She smiled softly, and as the guardian carried them into the new dawn, Evan finally understood what it meant to fight, not just for survival, but for something worth living for. And together, they disappeared into the light.